Hi and welcome to This Week in Travel. I'm Michelle Robson from Turning Left for Less. I'll be looking at some topical news stories and also chatting to Debbie from luxury agents GTC about how you can use their services to get free nights, upgrades, hotel credit and lots more and not actually pay any extra for it. So I'm sure you'll be really interested to hear about that. I'll also be looking at 5 ways you didn't know you could collect Avios, with some unusual ways of collecting Avios on non-One World airlines as an example. But first, let's have a look at what's been happening in the news this week. In the news this week, Qatar has announced something I find quite interesting. On the surface, it's actually about spending your privileged miles, or privileged Avios as they are now, in the Doha Hamad Airport. But actually, if you look in the detail of it, they're saying that they will now credit the Avios when you check in for your flight. Normally, you'd get the Avios sometimes a few days later even, or weeks, credited to your account, but they're actually going to credit it when you check in, and not just at Doha, literally any of their airports. It doesn't say there's any exceptions. So that the reason they're doing that is because they obviously want you to redeem your points or Avios at the airport, but you don't have to, and you've still then got those Avios instantly. So that's really useful if you're saving up for something, you know when you're going to get them, whereas normally you just never quite know, especially if you credit them to British Airways. However, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's worth considering where you credit those, because if you want your British Airways status, you're going to have to credit them to British Airways, and that's not going to be the guaranteed Avios instantly. It's only for the Qatar Privilege Club. So if you're not trying to get status, or you've already got your tier points for that year, then it's worth considering, should I actually credit this flight to the Qatar Privilege Club and get my Avios instantly when I check in, or should I stick with my normal airline that I credit to? Manchester Airport have announced that they are going to close Terminal 1 as part of their redevelopment phase in 2025. They're going to improve Terminal 2 further. They've already expanded it substantially, but they plan to improve the check-in and baggage areas. And let's face it, Manchester's had some pretty bad press recently. They've had a lot of queues and chaos during 2022. And personally, I don't think it was that great before COVID. It was probably my least favourite UK airport before all the chaos started. So anything they can do to improve it would be great. If you're planning to go skiing in France, you may want to look at the announcements by the FCDO, which is the UK Foreign Office. They've announced that the 2 major ski lift operators in France are planning to go on strike from the 31st of January, and this is likely to spill over into half term. There's been a number of strikes and protests in France recently, nationally, so it's been affecting everything to do with transport, and this is all to do with retirement age, as they wish to raise it. There's also likely to be more air traffic controller strikes at the same time. And finally, I'm going to talk about a hotel offer that you might want to consider if you're wanting to get status in a hotel chain this year. If you don't have a particular chain in mind, you might want to consider Marriott, because they're making it quite easy. Although that's not necessarily a good thing if everybody ends up getting status. As someone once said, if everyone has status, no one has status. The chain is Marriott, and they also have another way to get status quickly, which is the American Express Bonvoy Marriott card. Now, with that card, you get 15 status nights included, which in effect reduces the number of nights that you need to stay with them by 15. So, for example, I have platinum status, so I have to get 50 nights, but by having that card, I only need to get 35. The new offer actually makes it even easier. You need to register by the 9th of April, and it's available for stays from the 7th of February to the 23rd of April. When you stay during that period, you get double elite status nights. So in effect, if you manage to stay 25 nights during that time, then you would actually get the status for platinum, because it's in effect giving you double status nights for every night you stay. And on top of that, you also get 1,000 bonus points, and that's per night. Sometimes they'll offer it per stay, but this is per night. So if you're interested, I'll put the link below and you can sign up for this promotion. It's worth bearing in mind that you do need to register for the promotion before you stay. They will not credit it afterwards if you then register. So I always say, when you see these things, you've got nothing to lose, you may as well just register. It doesn't cost anything, and then you know it's done, rather than staying and think, oh God, I forgot to register, and then it's a bit late. So have a look at the link below and then you can sign up for the promotion, and good luck getting your status. In this next segment, I'm going to talk to you a bit about how you can earn Avios in some ways you may not be aware of. There's actually so many ways you can earn Avios. I had forgotten about a few of them when I recently updated our article, Guide to Earning Avios. We'll be republishing them over the next few days, so you may want to take a look at turningleftforless.com to see some more ways where you can earn and spend your Avios. The first way I'm going to talk about is using partner airlines. So with British Airways, you can earn Avios obviously on their own flights as well as One World flights. But did you know that if you join the Aer Lingus Air Club or the Qatar Privilege Club, that actually opens up extra airlines? So with Aer Lingus, unusually, you can earn Avios on United Airlines, which is obviously not part of One World, and is actually part of Star Alliance. So you could earn your Aer Lingus Avios through United, and then it's very easy to transfer them over to the British Airways Executive Club by using something called Combine My Avios. So don't be put off by crediting to a different scheme. The only thing I would caution is if you want your tier points and it's not a United flight, it's something that's part of One World, then I would always credit it to British Airways because you won't get the tier points otherwise. But if it's something like United that British Airways don't cover, you may as well credit it to Aer Lingus unless you wanted to try and get Star Alliance status, and then you can get your Avios. Qatar also has a different range of airlines that they work with that you can earn Avios on. One is Oman Air. Now they're actually due to become part of One World next year, but in the meantime you can earn Avios through Qatar Privilege Club flying Oman Air, and I do actually really like Oman Air. I think they're a great airline in business class. They also have other airlines like Bangkok Airways that are a great little boutique airline, as they call themselves, that fly out of Bangkok to the islands. They tend to be a bit pricey, but they are really good. There's also JetBlue that fly from London to the States and have some good pricing. So there's a few examples of some extra airlines you can earn Avios with if you credit them to the Qatar Privilege Club. Again, it's really simple to transfer your Avios across. It's slightly different in that you need to link your accounts. So you need to link the Qatar account with your British Airways Executive Club account, and then it's really simple just using Combine My Avios, and it's pretty much instantaneous. Then I'm going to move on to something else that's been discussed recently with my group of friends, which is cashback. So there are various cashback sites such as Quidco and Top Cashback, but you may not be aware that Top Cashback actually offers Avios as a way of taking money out. Now, it's not necessarily the best use of the cashback to take Avios. Even with the 5% bonus, you might find you get better value taking a gift card because the bonuses can be higher. However, if you're really struggling to collect Avios for something, or you don't particularly want one of the gift cards, then why not convert them into Avios? And Top Cashback, although it has some of the similar stores to the British Airways e-store, which is similar to Cashback but gives Avios, they do actually have a wider selection, and sometimes the rates are slightly different. So it is always worth joining Top Cashback as well. The one thing I'd caution on is never to let things build up too much in your account there in terms of cash. You just never know, whether they might become insolvent, in which case you'd lose all that money. So I try and take it out regularly. They give a 5% bonus, but they do very occasionally do 25%. But it's been quite some time since we've seen that, so we wouldn't necessarily wait for that because it might never happen again. We can keep our fingers crossed, but yes, it's not happened for quite a long time now. So that's Top Cashback, and I'll pop a link below for you to sign up for that if you want to find the website. And the final thing about flights to know is that if you fly with Emirates, there is a way to collect Avios on them, and that's through a Qantas code share. So that means that you have to book your Emirates flight through Qantas and have a Qantas flight number, but you would actually get Avios, and as well as that you get tier points. This is a bit of an exception to the rule that normally if you fly a One World airline other than British Airways and then you do a code share, so let's look at say American Airlines but you're flying on JetBlue, you normally would not get any Avios or any tier points, even though it's a one world ticket, as it were, because you're flying on a non-one world airline. But Qantas have a special arrangement with Emirates, and they cover quite a lot of Asia. So it's always worth looking. If you're planning to book an Emirates flight, could you get it on a Qantas codeshare, and then you can collect your Avios and tier points. I'd next like to talk about hotels. Now, I'm guessing most people know that you can get Avios on certain hotel chains, but did you know there's actually an Avios Hotels? It's a separate website where you book hotels, a bit like Expedia or hotels.com, but you get a massive 15 Avios per pound spent. So that's much better than pretty much any of the others. It's probably similar to Caligo or Rocket Miles, which are hotel booking sites separate to Avios, but where you can claim Avios or Qatar Privilege Club Avios or various different airlines, you can claim miles on those bookings. So I'd advise you to check the price, because sometimes it can be more expensive than booking with something like Expedia or direct with a hotel. However, even if it is slightly more expensive, you may decide it's worth it for that 15 Avios per pound spent, which is pretty high. And if you're struggling to get enough Avios to book a reward, it's a fairly quick way to get some. So I'd weigh up the pros and cons of whether it's more expensive and whether you really need the Avios now before you make a decision, but definitely worth considering. And that's a separate website that you'll find the link below. And finally, I'd like to talk about Heathrow Rewards. Personally, I think it's worth joining this, whether it's for Avios or just for the points. It's very easy. You literally just show your card whenever you buy anything at Heathrow or online, enter your details, and you get points for spending on parking, shopping, dining, pretty much everything at Heathrow that's actually an official Heathrow service, and pretty much all the shops there, including duty free. You get 10 points per £10 spent. If you spend £750 in a year, then you get the Heathrow Premium Rewards, where you get double that, and you get a few extra perks for being premium as well. So once you've got your points, you can transfer them into Avios. And also there's a number of other airlines, so it's worth having a look through to see if actually it's something that you might find useful to put it maybe in Emirates or someone else. I actually don't transfer into Avios normally, because I find better value out of some of the other rewards. So for example, you can spend it on shopping. If you spend it on parking, you get double the money's worth. So actually I quite often will use it for parking. And you can also use it for the Heathrow Express. So I find them really useful, and let's face it, I'm there anyway, I'm going to spend the money anyway, so why not get something back? And now that there's no longer the duty-free and tax-free shopping that we used to have before, it's quite a good way to actually buy designer goods. So unless you're going to buy something from, say, Selfridges that has its own reward scheme, that's yet another thing that you've got to monitor. If I was to buy something, quite expensive, and there's nowhere that I can get cash back on it, for example, or some sort of reward scheme or loyalty scheme, then I will generally wait and buy it at Heathrow. It's not any cheaper, but at least I know I'm getting something back on that I could turn into Avios or miles, or just take a cash reward and spend it on some more shopping. So what's not to like about that? So next I'd like to talk about a completely free way to earn Avios. Doesn't cost any money, just a bit of your time. And that's doing surveys. So there's two surveys that British Airways work with. One is eRewards and the other one is Avios for Thoughts. Both of these offer a 600 Avios bonus just for joining and doing your first survey, or in the case of Avios for Thoughts, by doing an initial training on how to fill in surveys and then doing your first survey. So 600 Avios for nothing, I think, is pretty good if you've got a bit of time on your hands. I'll link to both of those below. So today's guest is Debbie from GTC Travel. For regular readers of Turning Left for Less, I'm sure you'll recognise that name. It's the luxury travel agents that we have a partnership with. So GTC are one of the largest groups of independent luxury travel agents, and they offer a range of benefits if you book through them. But Debbie's going to explain to us a little bit more about how it all works. So thank you for joining me today, Debbie.
No, thank you, Michelle. Great to be here. Thank you.
So I thought we'd start by explaining the difference between a luxury travel agent and a normal travel agent, because a lot of people probably haven't used a travel agent for a long time, and they kind of maybe think of Expedia or the old high street style travel agents with your package holiday type of thing. So can you explain a bit about what a luxury travel agent does?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So we obviously strive to go above and beyond for our clients. So we would build a personal relationship, get to know their needs inside and out. And from there, through our partnerships with hotels, cruise companies, tour operators, we would package together a perfect itinerary, and that would include perks, VIP treatment. We would book transfers, restaurants, bar reservations. So we do everything from start to finish, just to make sure that the clients have a memorable stay and we take that stress away of them thinking about all those extras that they need.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. And I think a lot of people might be listening to that and thinking, oh God, that sounds expensive, because obviously Turning Left for Less is all about how to do luxury on the cheap. So I think it's worth pointing out, particularly for hotels, that actually what people will pay if they go with some of the offers we're going to talk about is actually the standard flexible rate, isn't it, Debbie?
That's correct, yes. And the perks that we get with those rates. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing I really wanted to highlight today that not everybody understands is if you book with someone like Expedia or a normal travel agent, if you book, say, for Hilton or Marriott or one of those brands that has a loyalty scheme, you don't get your points in most cases, you don't get the perks. But actually by booking with you, you cover a lot of these special relationships with brands like Hilton, where not only do you get your perks and your points, but you also get some extra benefits, which I think quite often can outweigh between having a flexible rate and actually maybe getting a slight discount on something you can't cancel. So Debbie, could you talk us through a little bit of those brands that you work with and what sort of perks people could get if they book through you?
Of course, yeah, we have many programs, Michelle. Like you say, there's Hilton Impresario, there's Marriott Stars, there's Hyatt Privé. They're just some of many that we have affiliations with. Travel agents have to be invited to these programs. So again, not every agency would have access to these perks. The perks are generally pretty much the same across all the hotels, if I'm honest. It's complimentary breakfast, usually $100 credit or equivalent of, you know, the local currency, room upgrade subject to availability, normally at check-in. Also, we get early check-in and late checkout, again subject to availability.
And also I think we should mention, Debbie, about the kind of VIP treatment that you get. So Debbie actually books all my personal travel. That's how good she is. I trust her to do my own travel. And quite often, I say probably 90% of the time, I'll normally get a nice welcome from the manager with some fruit or chocolates or, you know, some big bottles of water, normally, or sometimes a bottle of wine if I'm really lucky. So, you know, you do get those VIP perks.
Exactly, that's correct, Michelle. You know, obviously all my clients are VIPs to me, so I you know, highlight this to the hotels. I let them know when clients are checking in, and yes, you know, that the hotels are very good and often give extra benefits that, you know, you wouldn't get if you'd booked through a high street agent, let's say.
Absolutely. And I generally book all my sort of Hilton, Marriott, those big brands that I collect points for. I generally book them all through Debbie where I can, because you do get that little bit extra that you wouldn't get, even though I've got Platinum Marriott and Diamond on Hilton. You know, I wouldn't get the $100 credits. It only, I should point out, only applies to certain brands within the groups. Like for Hilton, it's more the luxury brands, as you expect, like Conrad and Waldorf, etc. But obviously, if you contact Debbie, she can explain which ones she can help you with. And in fact, on the website, we do have quite a few articles that explain which ones that it covers. So I'll link to that in the comments below.
Yeah, so one other thing there, Michelle, to point out is with Hilton, they're really great. They also offer double Hilton Honors points. And then people like Hyatt, Shangri-La quite often will do upgrades at the time of booking rather than at check-in. So that's just something to think about. You know, again, subject to availability, but we would approach the clients at the time of booking and look to seek an upgrade at that point for them.
Well, that's really useful. I think,
Yes.
especially if it's a special occasion, it's nice to know in advance that you've got that upgrade,
Yes.
because otherwise you might think about, actually, will I pay to make sure I get the upgrade that I want? So that's really useful. Definitely double Hilton points. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer to book through you if you want your Hilton points, because you're going to get double. So why wouldn't you with the extra perks?
Yes, correct.
And I think also talking about, we've just talked about Hilton, that there's actually a couple of special offers on at the moment, and I think again it's a good reason to look at booking through someone like Debbie and GTC, because Hilton currently doing, I think, 3 for 2, and sometimes it's 4 for 3, and then IHG have an offer. I don't know if you're able to just run through that a little bit.
Yes, again, yeah, quite a number of chains have got offers on at the moment, but as Michelle's pointed out there, these offers can only be booked through exclusive agents like ourselves. You can't book these direct with hotels. You can't book via your memberships. They literally have to come through agencies. So as Michelle said, Hilton have just extended their 3 for 2 or 4 for 3 offer. Hyatt have got a number of offers on at the moment: stay for 3, pay for 2. IHG, again, as Michelle has just stated, they've just extended their offers. So yeah, give us a shout. We can offer these long stay offers, but also you still get your perks on top of that. So you'll still get your $100, you still get your complimentary breakfast, you still get your room upgrade. So it's definitely worth giving us a shout.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it's particularly good value in places like the States, and somewhere even like Hawaii is a really good example, where I remember staying with a stay I booked with Debbie in the Four Seasons, and the breakfast there was like an average of about $50 a person, which is, huge amount of money, and this was like a good few years ago. So although sometimes you think, do I want to pay that extra bit for the advance against using an advance purchase, actually you're probably going to save money, particularly if you do a 4 for 3 offer, and then you've got your breakfast, and then you've got your credit, all those kind of things. If you do the sums, quite often I find it's definitely cheaper. And actually nowadays I still really like having that flexibility. I think prior to COVID I used to book a lot more advanced purchase rates that you couldn't get a refund, but I think it's kind of highlighted to all of us, actually having that flexibility is really, really useful, because you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, correct. Honestly, yeah, you're correct there, Michelle. We're still living in some very strange times, and that flexibility is much needed. And I think that is really, an important factor to clients nowadays. They do want that flexibility. And again, you're right. I did a quote for somebody at the Ritz-Carlton in South Beach, and the breakfast is $50 a head. So if you're getting complimentary breakfast and you're there for 3 nights, that's a big saving. So yeah, no, you're right, Michelle. It's advanced purchases are not always the right way to go. It needs to be weighed up.
Yeah, and I think particularly now with the way that flights, there's still a lot of cancellations and changes. If you're going to book separately, I think it's definitely worth thinking about having flexibility, because if your flight gets cancelled and they say, sorry, there's no flights that day, you've got to go on another day. If you've booked a rate that can't be changed, then you're going to be out of pocket, and trying to get that out of the airline is a hassle that you really don't need.
Yeah, exactly. And the cancellation policy on most of these hotels is 6 p.m. or even midnight the day before. But even on the day, the hotels can generally be really flexible with us. So, if it is down to a flight cancellation, they're pretty good. So, yeah, agreed. Definitely, flexibility is the way forward.
So we've talked a little bit about the kind of the main brands if you're collecting your points, or you want to, have your loyalty recognised. What other brands do you do for maybe people that want something other than your typical sort of Hilton or Marriott?
Yeah, we've got quite a number of luxury brands. Four Seasons do a preferred partner program. You have Dorchester, Jumeirah, Langham hotels, and many more. Obviously you can contact us via Michelle, and we can give you a list of the actual programs and what benefits that you can get with those programs.
Yes, I'll make sure I put a link into our booking page, or if you don't want to use that, just go to turningleftforless.com and you'll notice at the top there's a booking tab. Just click on that and you can fill in all the things you're interested in, and then Debbie or one of the team will get back to you. I should have probably said Debbie's one of 3 agents that work with Turning Left for Less. We also have Mark and Mandy that make up the team, so they take it in turns to answer, so we've always got coverage there for someone to help you. But personally, Debbie was our original agent, so I've kind of stayed with Debbie.
Thanks,
so I thought we'd also just comment on something called Virtuoso, which you also cover. And that, again, most luxury agents offer Virtuoso, but people may not know what that is. Can you explain a little bit about what a Virtuoso hotel is?
Yes, of course. So Virtuoso is actually the leading global network of luxury suppliers. They partner with over 2,200 of the best companies. So that's hotels, cruise companies, tour companies. But based on the hotels, it's not just big chains such as Four Seasons. You'll find that there are some luxury small independent hotels in there. And again, they offer the same perks. So your upgrades, your complimentary breakfast, your credits.
Are they flexible rates as well, Debbie?
Yes, they are flexible rates as well. Yes, that's right. Yep. So it just gives us that access. So, we've got, you've got your big chains, as Michelle says, but then you've got some chains that might say, for instance, leading hotels of the world. They do have a program called Vita, but majority of their hotels are under Virtuoso. So it really just depends on the hotel, but it gives us that bigger network of hotels to work with.
I mean, I've looked at Virtuoso, and I think I might have used some Virtuoso things with you before, Debbie. But when I look at it, if I have a look at a particular city, if you kind of think of the iconic hotels at the luxury end in that city, you will nearly always find pretty much all of them on Virtuoso, and not, as Debbie says, not just your chains. It's a lot of independent hotels that are some of the best that you might find in a city. So I think it's always worth asking what Debbie can do in terms of independent hotels if you're not that bothered about your status or collecting points, because actually you might find something really interesting and get a good deal, because they all have deals through Virtuoso and through Debbie throughout the year, which we try and highlight. But it's always worth asking what's available.
And again, we always check Virtuoso and maybe, so I'm using Four Seasons as an example here, but I'd check the rate, Virtuoso rate, and the Four Seasons preferred partner rate, and you actually might find that Virtuoso might have a special on, or vice versa. So we do weigh both options up before quoting. But as Michelle said, it's great because there's a lot more independent hotels on there, which are not in the program, so it benefits everybody.
So we've talked through all the kind of luxury end of hotels. If someone wanted something that was more of a standard kind of 4-star hotel, do you cover that as well?
We can do, yes. There's no perks. There are no perks, so we can offer rack rates, or we do have access to using tour operators. So, again, we can use those guys, but generally non-changeable, non-refundable. So it really is going to depend on that flexibility.
Well, that sounds pretty good. Like I could book anything for a 10-night trip and just get it all sorted through you. So that makes life easy.
That's it. Yeah, we just package it together. So, we have access to tour operators, sort of Expedia type companies as well. So we can just package it all together for everybody.
Perfect. So I want to say thank you for joining me today, Debbie. That's been really useful, and hopefully people have gained a bit of understanding about why it's actually worth booking with someone like yourself rather than booking online a lot of the time. And if anyone does want to speak to Debbie or one of the team, then, as I said, go to our website and booking inquiry tab, or I'll put the link in the comments below. And thanks for joining us, Debbie.
No, thank you, Michelle. Have a good day.
Well, that's all for this week. I hope you'll join me next week, because I'll be chatting again to Jonathan Samuels from Sky News. You may have seen his initial interview in episode 1, where we talked about his views on what happens in 2023. In this extended interview, I'll be talking to him about some really fascinating stories about his time as a news reporter, flying out of Iraq, flying into hurricanes, and all sorts of unusual things that the average flyer doesn't get to experience. And I'm sure you'll find that really interesting. So join me next week at the same time. Until then, happy travels.